been at this point, like I'm 65 years old. I liked what happened to me when Maus first came out. There was no such thing as a graphic novel section. My neighborhood bookstore had changed owners. I'd been friendly with the previous owner. There was some guy wandering around the store arranging things, and I'd go in there every once in a while. Maus was on the new release table. First year, second year, third year, fourth year, fifth year, sixth year, seventh year, it remained on the new release table. Eventually I realized I should at least introduce myself to the man who ran this store. And I said, you know, it's really sweet that you kept me up front with these new releases. And very crankily he says, I just didn't know where else to put it. So I think that's the section I would vote for. The sui generis, uncategorizable place is where I actually live and breathe. Comics is the culmination of a period that's been going on for all too long right now called, in my head, it's the Great Retrospection. A little bit like the Great Depression, capitals for each of the words. And it started with me wanting to make taking on a two-book contract, one to re-release a book called Breakdowns. It was my first book there was a breakthrough book, moving from underground comics into something related, but rather different, the beginnings of that Faustian deal, let's say. Pantheon was game to put it out again, so I did a new introduction looking back on what led to that book in terms of the key moments in my life and what that book was trying to point out by making an introduction in comics form that had about half as many panels as the rest of the book it was introducing, and then had a prose afterward to explain the introduction. But that was one project. And that was followed by the second book in the two-book contract, which was called Maus. I've been asked often to, well, when's Maus 3 coming out? And I was like, I'm sorry, the war ended. I ran out of material. But I did get asked the same questions over and over again and began to figure, okay, as part of this retrieval of the pile of rubble that's my rat's nest of a studio, I would put it in some kind of order with the help of a good friend who's a lit prof who actually knows how to look at things, who interviewed me over a period of years, and that became distilled into Maus, answering the primary questions that Maus has raised now that it's in quote, as it says on the cover, a modern classic. But with lots and lots of sketches, other kinds of material, audio elements that come on a DVD, fine 1999 technology, that lets you hear the interviews with my father that were underneath the book, as well as transcripts of it, and a wealth, more than anybody could ever imagine, piled up around Maus to elucidate it and what the implications of the book are beyond, although including the historical aspects of it. That was about all I was going to do. That was enough. And that's when I got invited to have a retrospective and said no. And unfortunately, I was talking to somebody who was able to take no and make it mean yes, because I listed all my objections and they overcame most of them because it was part of the being made the president of Angoulême's Comics Festival. Angoulême is like a cross between the Cannes Film Festival and the Frankfurt Book Fair, but for comic books. Not like the San Diego superhero comics thing, but for the medium. It was an honor that I didn't want because it came with a retrospective. I told them it's ridiculous, I can't do this, it's too much work, just make Xeroxes of my work and leave it at that. Then I thought of a good friend who has a gallery in Paris and said, if you'll put her in charge of it, she can do it. By God, they got her to agree, so it was then her project. And then I said, and the other problem is for this to all to happen, it has to travel. And so it finally ended up with a lot of rocky road in between, going to the Pompidou in Paris, to the Ludwig in Germany, to the Vancouver Art Museum, to the Jewish Museum in New York, and we'll now finish the last period on this great retrospection will be in Toronto at the AGO in December. But somewhere in there a catalog was desired. It didn't start with that, but it became logical after a certain moment. And that was yet one last agonized sifting of everything that I'd looked at up to now for the last X number of years. And now I'm finally on the other side of it to see if I can have anything to do now that I'm finished looking back.